Shelley, I always say it's really bad for us because the best applause line is when we get introduced, right?
Exactly.
Planned Parenthood, everybody feels great about Planned Parenthood. We're thrilled to be with you. I did want to say one thing on the menopause thing, just a warning for everyone. You see my picture up there? That's what my hair used to look like before menopause, and then it went totally curly. So I think we have our menopause expert over there, am I right? So anyway, I'm learning, always on the journey. Shelley, tell them a little bit about who you are and what you do and what is happening in Texas. Like good margaritas exported, good breakfast tacos, bad policy.
Bad policy. Shelley Hayes McMahon. I am the co-executive director of Planned Parenthood Texas Votes. We are privileged to work in service to the 3 affiliates of Texas. We handle the legislative, electoral, and advocacy work for all 254 counties. So yeah, we're a small yet scrappy team over here trying to change Texas, build the Texas that we feel like we deserve for ourselves and for our kids. Texas, wow, let's see. I mean, we are, what's the word? It's kind of crazy, but also not surprising because as large as Texas is, and folks have to understand how big Texas is. Anybody in here not from Texas? Yeah. So it's really hard to understand that it can take you all day to get out of Texas, to get to another state. So it's when we look at the scope of work that we do and that Planned Parenthood National also does, Texas is one, good margaritas, great tacos, but we are the petri dish for terrible policy. Everything gets tried out here. Texas has a complete abortion ban. So don't sit and think that if you have a life-threatening emergency while you are pregnant in Texas, or that you may have to choose between yourself and your pregnancy, that Texas is going to side with you. They will not. There are very few exceptions for the mother when it comes to the life of the mother, and we have 0 exceptions for rape or incest for abortion in Texas. I see heads shaking, yes. Yeah. So understanding that what happens in Texas doesn't stay in Texas is something that you have to take away from this conversation today. I feel like I answered that, yeah?
Yeah, you did a great job. So, I mean, scared the heck out of us, but yeah.
I feel like, you have a lot of insight, however, on what's happening on the national level.
Yes, and it is true that the petri dish that is Texas, it's like when they say, you know, if the U.S. sneezes, the world gets a cold. Same with Texas and the rest of the U.S. in terms of how they look to policies and then bring them to other states all over the place who then end up in our court systems. And we have, for example, several things coming before the Supreme Court that I wanted to mention to folks and encourage you to follow relatedly to the situation of pregnancy safety when you are in a hospital. The Supreme Court is hearing opening arguments in April on a case about the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act called EMTALA. And if they were to rule negatively on that, a case brought out of Idaho, we would end up where you are in an emergency room and based on the abortion law, they do not have to give you a life-saving or health-saving or fertility-saving abortion. And this is really, you know, people are starting to wake up. I think Kate Cox, the IVF case, obviously, that we all saw coming out of Alabama, and the ruling by the Supreme Court. We've also got a mifepristone ruling that will come down out of the Supreme Court later this year that could severely limit access to mifepristone, the critical abortion drug, and that would be nationwide. And a lot of people, I think, blue states are like, yeah, but I live in a blue state. Somebody can come to us here. You know, we don't want a world where people have to travel hundreds and thousands of miles to get care. That's an unacceptable and unfair world. And they're coming for everybody. I think that's what I would say based on the experience in Texas and everywhere else. They're coming for everybody, and they're coming for all of it, right? Contraception, if you do the deep readings, if you read the 800-page Heritage Foundation brief for a next administration, you will find out that there's not one part of your sexual and reproductive health life that they're not interested in. So, but Are people depressed? What are they doing here? How's the fight back going?
You know, I feel like I'm looking out in the audience and I see a lot of familiar faces, all of whom are extremely scrappy Texans. We are angry, right? But we are organized and we are hopeful. And we are also wise. We're in our 50s, right? I got a whole lifetime of being Black, one, in this state, being a Black woman, and also being a Black woman in leadership in this movement. So in the state of Texas, we are, one, encouraging everyone to keep their eye on Texas and invest in Texas, right? There is a movement in Texas where we understand that incremental wins are still wins. We don't get the 50-yard wins here. We move inch by inch, but every inch is an inch that we are not giving to Ken Paxton. And y'all need to understand, Ken Paxton has a global view of abortion access, reproductive rights, trans rights.
Yeah.
What he does inside of Texas, he doesn't keep in Texas. He is trying to get the records of transhumans outside of the state of Texas, right? So when we talk about our fight here, and Dawn asks how we are inspired. And it's hard to use that word, but as I look at the young people that we serve in Texas, the communities that we serve in Texas, and our staff, the average age of my staff is 27. I'm old enough to be their mother. It's a whole lot of mothering happens. But they are not giving up, and they have lived through this trauma. You know, a lot of them, their first vote might have been maybe for Hillary, but in the Trump administration. They have started their activism sometimes back to Wendy, right? But also during the Trump administration. So these kids have seen not just incremental change, and I say kids, but young people, incremental change, but they have also seen leaps and bounds where our rights have been just dialed back to pre-us. So it's, I feel good about the future of Texas. Texas is changing, our demographics are changing. We are a majority-minority state, which everyone needs to understand, but what we are not is a consistent voting state. And that's my work. That's what we do. We talk to our supporters, we get them activated, we get them registered, and we get them to the polls. But I feel like that's kind of where we are. But, you know, on your side of it, we talk about what happens in Texas, but you do a lot more with the corporate environment, you do a lot more with businesses, and you talk to a lot more people who are in the business area. What is that looking like?
Yeah, we are getting a lot of outreach from companies who want to align their policies to take care of their employees and make sure that people are safe. And I would say, here, let me ask you a question. How many of you know what your company, Shelley raised this, what your company would do if you or one of your colleagues needed a life-saving or health-saving abortion while you were traveling for work? 2, 3, 4, yeah. I mean, a handful of people. And this is a real question because we have 21 states right now that have some level of abortion ban that has been passed in that state. People are going every day and are at risk. The other thing that we have been working on, Planned Parenthood and a number of other wonderful groups, is something called the Reproductive and Maternal Health Compass. And that is a survey that your employer and an employer, and many of you may be running the companies yourselves, you could tell your CHRO, get right on there. It allows you to baseline how you are doing on kind of best practice policies. And the website is rmhcompass.org.
This is important. Write that down.
I really encourage you to have your company fill that out. Once they do, and this is not like a lead pipe, we're gonna then beat you over the head with what you said. This is an improvement tool, right? This is to say how many companies are doing these things. How do you move from being okay to really good, from being bad to better, and there are going to be tools, there's going to be advice and access to other kinds of incentives that are going to help people move along. So I think that's really, really important in that area. Some of the other things that I would just say are that we need companies in particular to look at are aligning what they say their policies and their values are with their giving. So if you don't know who your company is giving its political money to, that's another really, really critical area. Because what we often see is people who are espousing good policies on the one hand, or saying good things publicly, and at the same time are funding the people who are actually doing exactly the opposite of what they say they support. So that's a big deal. And for companies, one of the things, Shelley, that we see and all the surveys show is this is really important for attracting and keeping talent, right? 81% of working women under 40 say the stance that their company takes around sexual and reproductive health and the stance of their companies is proof of whether they support women's success in the workplace. 76% say it's something that they consider when they are thinking about taking a job. 50% of women in the workforce say they would switch companies to be better aligned on values. So when you think about workforce development, retention of your top talent, this is something that people really, really need to pay attention to. And also consumers, right? We know consumers are vote more and more with their wallet about what they care about and what they value. And so I think that companies, there's a reason that people are attacking ESG and other things. And it's basically to have a chilling effect, attacking DEI, because these things work and they change the playing field and they open it up for more people in the world to be successful. And that doesn't meet everybody else's need all the time in some of the corporate environment. And so we really, really need to be sure that we are out there pushing.
Most definitely. And the fact that so many of us are now remote, so you may live in a state that has a complete abortion ban like Texas, but your employer might be in New Hampshire or New York. So what Dawn was saying about making sure that you understand what your fellow employees or colleagues, what they are living under outside of maybe your safe bubble is extraordinarily important. You know, Texas allows companies to not cover birth control under their insurance plans. So when you look at the fact that we have gone from legislating humanity, where Black people in this country are only considered to be 3/5 of a human, to now legislating body parts. They are legislating how you can use your uterus, whether or not you can preserve your fertility through IVF. This is where we have gone. And the scope, it cannot be over dramatized what is happening in this country, especially in what is happening in Texas. And if you haven't lived through having your actual humanity legislated, whether it's who you love, who you want to marry, whether or not you want to be a parent, all of these things, it's coming down the pipe, right? You know, I see faces that are just like, oh my God, you should be oh my Godding right now because it is here. You know, and November 2024, y'all, I hope you're ready. Yeah. Not just you, I hope you and 5 of your friends are ready because it's going to take all of us to save what little bit of rights that we have left. And, you know, for me and Dawn, we're both moms, right? I've got 2, well, I call them young men, but I guess they're basically adults. But you have
3 daughters, so.
And,
yeah.
You know, the work that we do, you know, my sons, and I say this quite often in these kind of situations, they're young men, but they're also the reason that women get pregnant, right? You know, you men in here, I see you shaking your heads. You really, you got to understand, right? But you've got water to tote in this fight also.
That's right.
And so do my young sons. You know, one of them is great. The other one,
You're not naming names, though,
I got
right?
one that's a rule follower, and I've got one that's not so much. So it's very important for me right now, because I've got one that's in community college, and I have another one that's starting to make college choices. I don't want him going to school in a state that does not have access to abortion. Because accidents happen, right? Even though his mom works Planned Parenthood, accidents happen. There are, we can talk about gun laws, we can talk about, so many things, the lack of DEI, we can talk about so many things that are happening on college campuses right now. But their health care and their safety as young men and whoever their partner may end up being is paramount. Right. For me, and I'm sure it is for you and your daughters.
Absolutely. My joke was that I have identical triplet girl daughters. I had to work at Planned Parenthood, but on so many levels. But one of the things that, when they considered where to go to school, as they consider where to live, one of my friends, their daughter just relayed that she had accepted a job, but she told the company, no, I won't go to your Dallas headquarters. I will only go to your New York office when they offered. And I think we're seeing more and more of that, particularly in residency programs. The thing that we're seeing is a notable decline in OBGYN residents attending residency programs in states where there are bans. And of course, that means, and often, if you're a resident somewhere, you go into a practice in that community or that state, right? And you become the next generation of OBGYNs. We have been having, Black women and women of color have been having a maternal health crisis that nobody's been paying attention to, and a prenatal health care crisis. But we are about to see something we've never seen before. I don't know if you guys saw, there was some data that said how many pregnancies from rape that had been continued over these last years since Dobbs.
26,000.
We have had so many folks are going to be showing up. They didn't want to be pregnant. They were denied abortion. We know that has economic impacts. We know that has mental health impacts. We know that there may be lack of access in those very places to the maternal health care that they need to have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby. And so, this is not just a little teeny thing called an abortion crisis. This is a major health crisis, and we really all need to see it that way. One thing I do want to say about again, I'm throwing a lot of websites and things at you, but it's important really to be as educated as we go into this election as possible, to have the facts in this world of misinformation and disinformation. I want to shout out a wonderful newsletter called Abortion Every Day by the amazing writer Jessica Valenti. And you can sign up for that newsletter, and it will make your hair curly, but it will arm you with what you need to know about what's happening to people all over the country. And I know so many of our dear friends who come for South by come from the coasts, either way. This year, you have an electoral role to play if you choose it, right? Often our friends in California and New York were like, hey, send money everywhere else. You've got races right in your backyard that are going to be important to be active in and voting in, and so we encourage that. And then the other thing is information is care. Our friends at an organization called PlanCpills.org. That's an important one to write down, PlanCpills.org. They are a great source of information about care. They share a DNA with Planned Parenthood, who for over 100 years really invented, I like to say we invented the women's health category, and that now that there are so many great entrepreneurs and companies, like we heard before, that are doing such great work in this space. But information about your body, about sexual and reproductive health, and about where you can go and who can help you, all of that is critical for us all to know and all to be able to share. So, Shelley, let me give you the final word here. 35 seconds.
35 seconds.
Send us out.
Don't be apathetic. Stay active wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
Y'all didn't clap through 3 of my seconds. We got elections coming up, right? And also vote for the greater good. Always vote for the greater good. There's an air of selfishness that can happen when you get to the ballot box, but always vote in the best interest of women at large, people of color, Black people, and our kids.
Thank you.